principal architect of my master construction, architect Anusha and architect Manohar. So could you tell us about how the firm started and what inspired it and what were the philosophies?
Okay, so the company was started by my father, Muralidhar. We are a generation of third generation of architects. So my grandfather was a contractor for PWD. He did a lot of public buildings in Bangalore, and my dad was inspired by everything that he was doing, and he studied civil engineering and became a civil engineer. So he started this firm in the late 80s, early 90s. So we're around 30, 32, 33 years old. And my brother and I basically grew up watching my dad do designs, draft designs and everything, and that's how we got into the field as well. The philosophy of the company is basically to put in as much hard work and passion as possible into every project that we do, and to be a client-facing and a client-oriented company.
We try to do every aspect of the building process, from the design to the construction, interiors, landscaping. We do all of it. So the client only has to talk with us, and so we have to work and understand every aspect of the building process.
So can you walk us through your architectural journey from being a student to a working professional?
Okay, so I initially did not want to be an architect, but I kind of fell into it. I wrote NATA as a plan B, and I kind of fell into it, and it kind of opened up a lot of creative avenues for me. I did not really enjoy studying architecture. I don't think anyone does, but it was I developed a lot of passion for it. So after I finished my bachelor's, I worked for a couple of years, and then I did my master's. I did my master's in urban design, and I came back to India because I had the notion of wanting to change my own city first. So probably trying to do that slowly. Hopefully we'll have a lot of urban design projects in the future for the company.
For me, it's always been a plan to be an architect. I decided that very early on, without really knowing what an architect is. And then college and internship happened. During internship, I got the opportunity to work on very large-scale projects. There's a huge resort project and designing individual aspects of that. After that, now I'm working, and here most of the projects we do is residential projects, and we've also worked on some hospital, and we've done commercial and institution work. Right now, housing is the biggest part of that pie, so that is something we're doing, and each time it's different experience. You meet a client, you understand what their dream home is, you try and understand what they want, what their desires are, what their tastes are, and then you try to incorporate that into the design of and the requirements for what they need, and it all has to fit in a budget. So the easy part now, after learning architecture, the easy part now is designing. The hard part is everything else.
Yes, especially the approval of the client and convincing them that this is what is good for you.
And then meeting those requirements in construction, and facing those challenges there. That's the hard part. Designing is the easy, safe part of the whole process.
So how do you balance creativity with the practical aspects, like from the functionality, bylaws, timeline, so how do you make sure your own philosophies and creativities come out despite all those restrictions?
So one thing I've observed in the practical world is, when I was an architect, I was extremely open with what kind of structures I designed, and it was always a curve or a circle or something like that. And in the practical world, everything is very rectangular. So we'll have to fit into that and show our creativity there. I would say the most challenging part of it is that when you have a very small site and the requirements are huge, and you have buildings all around, so you have to leave a certain amount of setback. So your area is very less, but the requirements are a lot. So, and the floor count is also less. So you will have to fit a lot of functions into those 3 floors or 2 floors that the client wants, while making them livable, while making them spacious enough so that they don't feel suffocated in their own home, while making sure there's enough light and ventilation. So all of these are challenges. And I think tackling them and solving them is where your creativity comes out. Your design creativity, space making creativity comes out in that. I think your design creativity and your aesthetic ability, your eye for aesthetics can come out in interiors, even in a small project. Interiors and elevations and maybe even landscaping.
When you're making buildings in an urban setting like Bangalore, your aesthetic sort of thing has to take the step back, because primary design focus has to be spatial design. You have to design the space perfectly. You have to design all the requirements perfectly, and you have to keep in mind the light, the ventilation, you have to keep in mind the surroundings and the response to the surroundings. All of this has to come first, and secondary, your aesthetics become secondary. The client who approaches you would have approached you because of a project of yours they would have seen. So the aesthetic they already agree with. So your actual creativity really comes out when you're trying to solve problems, because they have so many desires that really clash with reality, and to fulfill them you have to think outside of the box. You have to come up with unique solutions inside the building in the way you arrange it. So that is where most of your creativity will come. And aesthetics you have to follow through. Form will only follow once function is satisfied.
There is another aspect of satisfying Vastu, which is a very big part of practical design. I don't think I've ever considered Vastu in designing anything I've done when I was a student, masters included. So, but in reality, Vastu holds a lot of importance for most clients, especially people who are making rental units, because they have to be sellable or rentable. So it's a big component, and some people even go as deep into Vastu as counting the number of columns, wanting an odd number of columns and not an even number of columns.
They want a specific number of windows, they want a specific number of stairs. They can't have a door that's aligned this certain way.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that will slowly start coming up, and then you'll have to start solving them. That's a big challenge that happens here.
As architects, we try to provide as much of a livable and like spacious space as possible. Recently, I had a client that had a problem with the size of their bedroom, because it was a 15 by 13 bedroom and they didn't want the number 13. So we had to reduce the size of the bedroom 1 by 1 foot just to accommodate that number of not coming 13. And they weren't okay with me putting the measurements in millimeters or meters as well, because they think in feet. So yeah, that's another thing. So all of these things actually require a lot of creativity, and I think it comes with you practicing and probably doing a couple of projects.
Becomes this other factor, like climate, like wind, like light.
Yes.
It also, depending on the client obviously, it becomes a factor you have to keep in. If you pigeonhole into this, you have to have your entrance in the northeast. You can't move it anywhere else. Then you have to start thinking of how to make that better, how to make that space more accessible, how to respond to that space. So it becomes this factor that you have to follow. Some clients don't care; they're not very strict about it. But almost everyone kind of wants at least the most basic of it. So yeah, you become used to trying to figure it out, the problem solving as well.
I think most people in the previous generations probably brought all their life savings and wanted to build a home for future generations that will keep it. Now the thinking has changed, it's an investment. So I might keep it for 10 years, I might sell it later, or my kids might sell it. So when the time comes for me to sell this house or this apartment, it has to be sellable. It has to be Vastu compliant, it has to be zoning regulations compliant, bylaws compliant, it has to have good ventilation, good light, it has to have these number of bathrooms, all of that comes in. So yeah, thinking has also changed. So I think this evolves and we'll have to evolve with it.
With over 3 decades in the industry, what are some strategies, operational strategy or project management strategy that MMC has refined to ensure that project is run smoothly throughout till the very end?
In the beginning, for the last 25 years, it was just my dad doing everything by himself. He had a team of laborers and a team of site engineers who he was also like a project manager. So he used to design, he used to take care of the construction as well. So just before we came in, maybe I came in 6 years ago and he came in 2 years ago. So just when we came in, it was kind of being divided into different site engineers, different project managers, because my dad started accepting projects and doing projects from the late 2000s to maybe around 2010. He started doing projects all around South India. So he couldn't be present at every different place. So we started hiring more site engineers and project managers. So it was a very big challenge because he would travel from one end of Bangalore to the other end just to make sure, every day, just to make sure that he was present at site and knew what was happening.
Right.
I think in the last 10 years with the introduction of like social media and WhatsApp and everything, it's become a lot easier because now we make sure that we get updates on what's happening on every site, whether we visit or not, to our phones. So we know what's happening on every site, every day, how many laborers have come,
The work.
yeah, who's attended, who's worked on what, and what are the challenges. All of that, we get it on WhatsApp. So we're in constant contact. Sometimes someone has a doubt and they'll video call and say, so this measurement is wrong. Like, for example, we're doing an interior project in Chittoor. And as you know, interiors is like very methodical and like very detail oriented. So they'll video call and they'll say, okay, that it's 6 inches off, what do I do? So then we'll have to come up with a strategy on the spot. So all of that, social media has helped and we've kind of branched out into this, which is helping a lot now, helping us do more projects in multiple locations now.
A lot of design also changes as you're constructing. Certain site details might change. You might have a slight mistake being made by someone who's pouring concrete. And then you have to you have two choices, either you adapt to it or you have to destroy everything and rebuild it, and sometimes you can't do that. So, and then the client will come up with ideas halfway through construction. So then you have to start thinking of how to implement that in a way they'll be satisfied. And that means we have to go there. We have to be there, present. We have to redo design, we have to draw it back out, and then we have to give instructions on how to do it all again. So constantly you have to sort of go visit the site and take stock of everything that's happening and how the client feels about it and everything. So that part of it can never be, handed off to someone else. So you have to, even if it's on some other city, once a week you have to travel there, visit the site.
Yeah, so can you share an example of a particularly interesting or challenging project that you've done?
Yeah, sure. So we're doing a residential project in JP Nagar. And in Bangalore, we have pretty good soil and hard strata quite high up. But in this particular site, when we did the soil test, we realized the hard strata is 34 feet down. So it's a very long way to go, and we couldn't go with a normal foundation. For a 30-40 site that is covered on all 3 sides, we had to go with a pile foundation. So this incurred, I think, 20 lakhs or something more of an extra additional cost. And
the process also was different because you couldn't bring heavy machinery in to dig deep because the road into it was narrow and it was surrounded on all 3 sides. So we had to bring in these small manual machines, and it took weeks and weeks of digging out the loose soil and reaching the strata and then filling it up and then doing another one. And so that process takes so long, and that adds this difficulty that you've not foreseen into the project. And to the client as well, they would have seen that, oh, this land that that they've been sold was filled in, so the most of the soil that's been there that they see is loose strata.
Another
building that's interesting is another residential project in Kekeri. There the client had a lot of ideas. They'd seen these images and they wanted that recreated. And so one of the things was they wanted multiple levels in their bedroom. So they wanted their bedroom and they wanted to climb up into another level inside of their bedroom, which on a normal site with normal number of floors, the challenge of making multiple levels is very different. And so we went through many different options and iterations of it. And what we settled on was making sort of tiers inside the building, where the bedroom has this area where they're going up, and the lower floor they're going down. creating a sort of void in the middle of the building that becomes a green space that's accessible from all the floors. So sometimes the sort of almost weird things the client brings to you becomes this source of inspiration to create something new that you wouldn't have done normally.
We also did a very small renovation project in Janagar, which is our home actually. And we had, so there was an existing room and an existing bathroom sort of thing. We had to take it down, and the problem was there was a RCC roof on top which had the tank, overhead tank and everything. So we had to retain that. So we had to add clamps to hold to support the roof when we take out the walls. And the biggest challenge was actually transporting the debris because it's on the 5th floor and we couldn't take everything through the lift. And we had to make a small pulley system, a hoist kind of thing, a minimal hoist, and transfer all the debris onto the hoist, take it down, empty it. While coming up, we didn't want it to come empty, so we would transfer brick and other material up. So thankfully we had like a 10-foot ramp space between two buildings, which we used for this purpose. Yeah, so that was a very nice project.
What is your take on sustainability and how do you incorporate the same in your projects?
So sustainability, we take it for all three things sustainability means: people, planet, profit. So we concentrate on people. We are very client facing. It's your dream home. We will make sure that it meets your requirements. Planet, we use sustainable materials which are locally sourced. So we don't prefer bringing in materials say from Jaipur or from any other place. Okay. So whatever is available in Bangalore, for example, we encourage you to use that, and we use mostly stone and brick which are naturally occurring. So that is one thing. We also use a lot of wood composite in our designs. And also we try to make sure that the transport we do between cities is as minimal as possible so that we don't spend on it, but also because we don't want to waste that fuel and everything. And in terms of profit, we are making sure that we have to make sure that the project is in your budget and it's economical for you, and we get the most bang for the buck that you pay. So for every penny you pay, we have to give you value. So we have to add value to the building, not just build a shell, but build a home. So that is one of our core philosophies as well. That is where the passion comes in.
Another aspect of sort of being at least environmentally conscious is how natural you can keep the building.
Mm-hmm.
For example, we don't have any lights on right now, but the natural light is enough. So for every building, that is some of the questions we ask. Is natural during the day, throughout the entire building, at no place do you have to have a light on to be able to use it. Natural light should be enough throughout the building. The natural ventilation should be enough to keep the building cool enough for the people living inside. And things like that, even in design, there are things you can do to reduce the sort of usage of electricity and things like that.
Yeah.
And rainwater harvesting, places to collect the water, all of this starts coming into it and to have a proper response environmentally.
We also encourage clients to have, we don't design any buildings without balconies for bedrooms. That is another thing. We give a lot of importance to that open space that you need, a little bit of a buffer from the road or from the next building. So we always encourage having at least one balcony per room, and maybe more if the design allows for it. So we also encourage clients to have a lot of landscaping and a lot of, not exactly landscaping, greenery in the building. So that also helps improve the air quality and all of that in the building. So that is something we're working on as well.
What are the future goals of the firm you're looking forward to?
Okay, immediately talking, we have a series of villas coming up in Chitradurga. So we'll have to start working on that. I hope we do more projects like that. But our goal in general would be to expand more, because we are currently serving most of South India. In the next 5-10 years, maybe we do all of India, and maybe in 20 years we do all over the world, hopefully.
One point of this is there's a lot of limitations with specifically working with clients. and a lot of them don't see what it could be. They want what already exists. So they see a building that already exists and they kind of want you to copy it, which you can't, which you shouldn't. And one of the things we've been thinking about is making buildings ourselves, sort of taking on that aspect of it, and then creating the finished buildings to then sell. So we have the control even in a design stage of what we want to design being brought into the world, and then and then people can, whoever wants, can buy it, obviously.
So leaving our mark on the world, I think.
What are the qualities or the skill an architecture student should focus on so that we can succeed in professional practice?
I think the most basic thing is space making and being as creative with it as possible. Right now, I think be as creative as possible, because as I'm a little bit bitter about this because I used to be a very creative designer when I was a student, but you have to face a lot of restrictions as a designer in the practical world. So I would say explore as much as possible. Those skills will be handy when you have to work in a tight space. Another thing I would say is try to hone your software skills. Your software skills will help you get into places. I don't know how far it will keep you in a job, for example, but it will help you get to it. And it will also help you to showcase what skills you already possess. So it's a very important tool to sharpen your software skills and to maybe work on your portfolios. I think your portfolio is your first impression of who you are as a designer, so you have to work on that. Practically, when you do your internships and when you start working, I would say try to work at as many firms as possible in the first 3-4 years of your career, and try to work on as varied projects as possible, so you get to learn a little about everything. So work on residential, commercial, everything.
One of the, a lot of it is creativity is what's new and how you're representing it. And one of the most important skills for architecture school specifically is how you convey that idea. So your presentation skills, especially when you're coming to the later parts of your study, it's very important you know how to properly convey your ideas, your design, and everything that's in a clean and professional way. And that obviously will help you with your portfolios and applying for work and everything. And that shouldn't stop at the paper, at the page. It should be in your words as well. You need to have a clear and easy way of communicating your ideas. That is a skill you have to grow if you can't do it normally. The conveying ideas, even on the fly, is a very important skill afterwards, because some clients will have, okay, we like this idea, but we want something else. On the spot, you have to be able to explain to them either how their ideas won't work or how there's a better idea. And that communication is super important, that how you do your job as an architect with your clients. So the communication is a very important tool that you'll have to polish in-house.
You will have to, like he said, to add to what he said, so your storytelling is very important. Your process of how you arrived at the design is also important even when it comes to a client, because a client will not have any knowledge as to how design works. They'll just see a plan on a paper or on a screen. So you will have to explain the littlest things. The smallest things that are very obvious to you will not be obvious to everyone else. So you have to hone those skills of how do you tell a story, what do you begin with, what makes the body, and how do you end it. So that is very important even with your thesis presentation or your normal project presentation. You will have to explain your thinking behind every small thing. It's the same with a client.
And you also, communication isn't just one way. You're not telling to them something. You have to be able to gauge what their reaction is, what they understand from what you're saying, how much they understand of what you're saying. That is also super important. Some clients will already have somewhat of knowledge because they've either researched or their own field is similar to architecture, so they have some knowledge, and their way they're thinking, they'll understand certain things, they won't understand certain things, and even there they'll be stubborn about certain things. So you'll have to understand that, and then you have to process and then convince them in some way or the other. So that is also an important thing. Even for you, your jurors who are, looking at your work and critiquing your work, even within them, they're all architects, sure. So obviously they have a huge amount of knowledge that's similar, but they'll also have individual sort of ideas and tastes that differ. So they're not a single entity, so each juror will be different for you. So you need to know, when you're presenting, you need to see what they're listening, what they like, what they don't like, what aspects they like, and things like that. That'll help you with how you deal with clients in the future.
I think you'll also have to learn to take a lot of criticism. You'll have to learn to take a lot of negative feedback. And you'll
Where
have
are you in?
Fourth year.
They know that.
not just from architects, clients are a lot more harsher. I'm sorry to tell you this.
They're not
Because
harsh in the same way.
critics are, jurors are, So clients will not tell
It
you
won't be
that
a
your design is
technical-
shit.
Yeah, it won't be a technical sort of criticism. It will be, oh, I don't like this. It'll be very vague. And
Yeah.
it'll be in terms of taste, in terms of trends.
Yes.
That is hard to swallow because you know better. But you can't tell them that. And so you have to accept it and then you have to work around it.
A lot of people don't even know what they don't like about the design. So, and they don't even know what they like. So
Then it's like, why don't we see another option?
yes.
So you won't know what part of this they don't like, but they want some other option, so then you have to work around that. So yeah.
So you have to prepare to work on the same thing again and again for multiple iterations, and then sometimes the client goes back to the first one. You'll have to be okay with it.
Okay, so thank you for this. It was really informative. I think we actually learned a lot.
Yeah, but yeah, thank you for your time. It was
Yeah.
No worries.
No.
Thank you.